or pick a fight with me. You must win. There is no choice in that. For the only weapon I am willing to use is my naked heart. And this poem is called Reflection, Your Reflection. Thank you for sharing in my play. I regret only the times when I failed to be a flawless mirror to your magnificence. When your perfect image got distorted in my corny, exaggerated glass. As so somewhere in a safe place, during meditation, or perhaps while driving my car, I will just cry in awe. And I have here one more mischievous poem, and it's... May I read it? Okay. It's called Bad Taste Surrealism for my brother-in-law forgetting his underwear on a shower rod. Yesterday, in my butt, I stuck my finger. Ever since I looked for it, with growing anger. It took me a full day to realize that first of all, I had to find my ass. I left it in my underwear. Where is my underwear? Over there. I know. And last two poems are short too. So pastoral. The time is to come when your every child wins. Somewhere, somehow, there is a way to breathe the warmth of her smile with your sunrise. Sometimes, somewhere, will arise a land for me to live in, embraced by her eyes and your trees. There you will make me as innocent and forever new as she is. And I pray we meet you together, your two of us and you. And the last poem is called Sonnet for My Soulmate's Dear Child, with name as poetic as silence. Let me be light which powers your aura. Let me be air that you kiss. I am the dirt that carries your footsteps, when your weight becomes my bliss. You touched my life as if it was poppy, with whispers so soft that even butterflies paused breathing. And the unique, most irresistible, your sweetest gift of all, you let me be.
You can see just in that single piece of action what his dedication is to the form of poetry and to the need for an audience and for a poet to share what's going on between them. And we might have, if you were in the audience a few weeks ago when Diane Frank was presenting her poetry, you got a taste of Paul's work then. He read something that he wrote for Diane. And you could see even in that single example his dedication to, his attention to detail. And it's not because of some kind of anal retentive need to list specifics. It's because he has a true interest and a charm for what's going on at real subtle levels, and also just the correlation between the subtle levels and what's going on at the more manifest levels of life. And so tonight, I think you've got your money's worth, and and definitely we're all really glad to be able to finally hear the works of Paul Stokstad.
Well, hi. So I'd like to thank you for coming and listening to poetry. What a funny thing to listen to. Something that most people think is boring and just slow. And they can be wrong, and they can be right. And also, thank you for going for this structure and people reading and people coming up for the open mic. The idea of this whole thing is to get exposure and get a tan as a poet. You know, it's get a little, get a feeling for communicating. Personally, my preferred form of communicating in poetry has rarely happened, and that is to speak out the poem while you're reading it on the page. And right now I'm trying to get a bunch of poems together so that it possibly could happen. As it is, I may be the only person who can read these on the page at this time, due to the Sanskrit italics I use in order to record them. Tonight I'd like to don't close it, it's okay. I like a little entropy in that poem. I like to give you a little feeling for structure, what I'm going to do tonight, depending on how long you last, and how long I do. First of all, I'd like to dispel the rumor that I only write romantic poetry by reading a few poems of general interest. And then I will dive into my normal genre, which will include some of my favorite romantic poems and also a few haiku, and my memorial section, Romance Meets Godzilla, and the return of romance. I might read a few extra ones thrown in, depending on time, a couple things in the conclusion. Another poem for Diane, beat up a little bit. And I felt like on this occasion I'd like to finish some poems. You always have a few unfinished poems, and I just have a title that says Unfinished after it. And finally I realized there are about 4 or 5 fairly major abandoned poems. But it's either Frost or Sandberg who said a poem is never finished, it's only abandoned. So I guess these are all a little bit unfinished. Still, in this general section, I seem to pick a lot of things about my family. And so I guess I'll just start with some of those. But this one isn't about my family, even though it's the first. This is about Laguna Beach. Kind of, I used to live there. It's called After the Fire. Here's the background, I used to have a paper route. I mean, like an adult with a paper route, right? I was up very early, and I saw a lot of interesting animals, skunks and deer, and the skunks walked across the road. But I did see this interesting sight. It's called After the Fire. It's dawn in Laguna, but over the ocean, it's like sunset, with the orange haze of Anaheim floating over the water. This morning's fire has given us Elvis records, palm trees, letters from lovers named Harold, financial records, unbalanced checkbooks, plastic flower pot holders, babies' crib toys, scratch and sniff collections, Mickey Mouse ears, and piles of unused Disneyland A, B, and C tickets, all mixed in an orange haze just off the coast of Orange County. This poem is from my childhood memory, called Childhood Night. All my relatives are Norwegians. They all live in Stoughton, Wisconsin, which is how they say Wisconsin. Stoughton. They have this beautiful pure vowel. I don't know if you know much about linguistics, but I actually studied this thing. And they have this band of a certain vowel going across the U.S., about 100 miles wide, as the Scandinavians headed west. It's true. Stoughton. This is beautiful, pure vowel. Okay, but I'll say it the other way. Childhood Night. The clock downstairs and its special chime on the hour and quarter. The owls hoot now and then, and the crumbs from Grandma's wheat germ in the kitchen silent. The tiny football hugged in one arm, and the fluorescent football outline glowing on the chest of my footed pajamas. Deep in the early years of the 50s, Grandma still living, and all of Stoughton, Wisconsin, fast asleep. A lot of my poetic inspiration comes from my mother, who's written a lot of nice poems. She's been published in Lyrical Iowa. A lot of poignant, beautiful things. The Pine Cone, from a poem of hers. A pine cone fell to earth one day and lay unnoticed by the throng. Later on, as I walked by, I saw, with branches pointing to the sky, a little pine tree growing. So I read, my mother seems to need to hear from me now and then. I was working in a head shop, actually, quite a few years ago. Not last year, as some people think. About the year the moon shot, I can't remember what that was, 71. Thank you. 69. And I didn't do drugs or anything, but I was working there. And my mom used to call me every week, and finally the guys kind of said, hey, Paul, you are away from college here, your first time, and you think maybe we could do without, calling your mom every week? And I said, it's not for me, it's for her, because she's a mom. So this is called For Mother. The rain pours off the metal corrugated roof of the old barn, unexpectedly, and yet obvious in hundreds of streams. The shiny blue-bodied bug crawling on the light blue sheet, its torso flexible, unlike anything I've ever seen. The sound, and not the flight, of a crowd of birds departing overhead. All this is so that Mom will know that all is well. This is for my brother. It's been a long time ago. This is in my workshop poem from the University of Iowa. We're talking undergraduate writer's workshop. This must be about like 1970. Okay, it's real antique. Brother's name's Richard. The poem is named Richard. And when you turned to wave, you turned. And when you turned to wave, you waved. And when you turned to wave, I knew that you were going. It's for my grandfather. Title is Grandfather. They say you read Thoreau. Maybe you've noticed the cross-generational compatibility there is. Grandparents and grandchildren, like real, hey, it's simpatico, hey. And the parents like, get up, be good, But there's this connection between grandparents. I really feel that it's a cycle thing. And this guy I hardly met, but he might have been interesting. Title, Grandfather, they say you read Thoreau. Grandfather, your painting of the stones and trees is darkened, damaged. No one understands. You live in photographs, paint spattered, or in your Stoughton restaurant, surrounded by your jars, the orange crush, the julep. It is the 30s, quaint, except for that it's yours, and you died my first year, reaching for an envelope. It's also about 20 years old. This is for my mother again. The Eyes of a Poet is the title. I'm sure you'll all relate to this since you're all poets, as far as I can tell. The Eyes of a Poet. Her name is Ruth. Little Ruthie, you stand so tall in the wedding photo of a relative. You stand and look so very far, with eyes so open, even at 5. You dominate the photo of the group of American and Norwegian relatives. Those eyes see beyond your years. Those eyes that after filled with love on seeing your own children. Those eyes that now see God in the arrival of a sparrow at your breadcrumbs. Those eyes of a poet that saw beyond, that see more, that have gazed upon a bit of eternity and always will. Okay, let's lighten up here a little bit. This is a poem I wrote after I was down by the library and I was teaching this girl how to juggle. And some, the ledger photographer came by and took us, the shot. You got to have the action shot of the day. I think for some reason there I was juggling in the front cover, the ledger. This is 1985. It's called Photojournalism Review. On the front page of the October 9th, 1985 Fairfield Ledger, a 5x8 photo entitled Juggling Act shows Paul Stokstad of Fairfield juggling 3 lacrosse balls on a Monday afternoon. But it's no fun to be on the front page of the Wednesday, October 9th issue of the Fairfield Ledger in a 5x8 photo along with headlines like, Hijackers surrender ship after 2 days of sea terror. American passenger reported dead. Farm family wins foreclosure suit. Government gets reprieve in credit bite. And Farm Bill keeps safety net in place. I don't mind the company of this one. Elderly MIU co-eds hitting books hard. But really, who wants to be part of an international hijacking crisis or a farm credit crunch? What I want the headlines on the page with me to say is, new butterfly discovered in New York City. Ice cream shown to be perfect food. No deaths anywhere this week. Scientists see link to growth of immortality. Poetry reestablished as important art form. Study shows inevitability of the suffusion of love everywhere in near future. List of newly enlightened Fairfield residents, page 7. It's a simple request. Any French speakers? Any French speakers in the room? Bilingual, anybody? Okay. There's a poem by a gentleman named Guyavic, and I don't have it here, but I'm going to try and remember it. Guyavic is a Breton poet. He's from Brittany. He writes beautiful, extremely spare poems, almost as spare as Glenn Watts. He's really a great guy. And but he writes in French, so Denise Levertov had to translate the guy. If I can translate it. And the reason it's all a lead up to this one poem. Okay. So it's called, in French, L'ouverture, the work. It says, quand chacun de tes jours tu seras sacré, quand chacun de tes heures tu seras sacré, quand chacun de tes instants tu seras sacré, quand le territoire, l'espace avec toi, porterai le sacre au long de vos jours, alors tu seras d'un champ de gloire. Which means, according to Denise, when each day is sacred, when each hour is sacred, when each instant is sacred, earth and you, space and you, bearing the sacred through time, you'll reach the fields of light. Well, this isn't as good as that. But those are the poems I love, so I want you to hear that. This says, it's kind of on that feeling for me. It's not quite there, but it has its own thing. It says, if you rest before you act, earn before you spend, sleep before you're tired, wake before it's day, eat before you're hungry, stop before you're full, walk before you need to run, and think before speaking, listen before thinking, be before listening. You'll be there before you go. This is a diet poem. Very short. The title is Eat Light. It says, eat light. The angels do, gathering at the dawn. This is now the long-awaited romance section, which I'd like to issue a disclaimer. The disclaimer is that these poems are not really about women. And they're not about me either. They're about me. It took me a while to realize that. But really, these are about me, and although they're about a number of different women, because I seem to fall in love with women now and then, I finally realized, women come and go, but I go on forever. It's like the people can change in your life, but the feelings are the same. And every person is special in their own different thing. But for me, this has been an area of learning. I have definitely acquired Puja Dosha in this life, and along with it, some learning in this area. And so I've been real fascinated with the feelings that came up. But it's the main thing, that these are really about me. And the other thing is that before I start this section, I'd like to conclude it by saying that this fall I decided to get married to myself. And be as nice to myself as I've been to all these people. It's been pretty nice, Now and then I take myself out to a movie. There was a few weeks where I wasn't speaking to myself. But now, I'm getting on pretty well. It's so much self-referral. I mean, the ultimate relationship, I guess you all know, is with yourself. If you don't have that together, you probably don't belong at the dance. But it does seem to take a while to get that together, so I'm working on that one now, but it seems to have attracted somebody wonderful. So when you have your strength, I think people are attracted to that, and I think it's a real important project. I'm sorry I had to wait till I was 40 to figure it out. But it's been interesting. So here's some little romance stuff. The title of this is Diane. It's very short. Head resting against the curled fingers of my hand, hair on the side of my face pushed upward, I think of you. The picture of you. The sun is on the screen behind your shoulder. This pastel blouse, striped red, blue. That little arm, barely visible. And mouth parted slightly. There's a subtle shade of pink on your cheek. You may not believe in God, but you are everything divine to me. This one's called Missy, for someone named Missy. Starts out real soft. I'm in love with that steely little mind, with that sharply chiseled face, the fantasy. It's 6:30 a.m. in a sunlit summer room, and waking up to you all in white sheets, and your sharply chiseled face is softened by sleep, but then awaking, your steely blue eyes open, and it's divine to be lying with you and awakening. And yet, it's someone else lying with you and awakening. It is his warning, and he is your love. Still, he is my representative. My congressman. He loves you for me. He loves you in case I never see you again. He loves you and never knows that through his eyes I see you, and through his love I love you. Forgive me, for I am in love with that steely little blue-eyed mind, with that sharply chiseled, sleepy face. This has a little kind of oriental feeling. I have an oriental painting here. I tend to like oriental things. I don't know why. Guess they're nice. Japanese things, Chinese things. I studied a lot of Chinese poetry and Chinese calligraphy and Chinese philosophy, but I never figured out how to get a B or an A from the guy. I kept getting C's, but I kept loving it. I finally realized I could have asked him, how do I get a B or an A? My grade point average, and because of this one interest. But I kept doing it. Anyway. Title is Bright Lotus, You Are. That's also the first line. Bright Lotus, you are, married to a foreign prince, living in a southern land where snow no longer touches you. I am going through the autumns, 2,000 miles to the north. Today, the carp swam to the top of the quiet river. A bird dipped in flight, almost touching our former meeting place. Yes, I still love you, but I do not miss you, since I am in love with what you are. And nowadays, I see you everywhere. This is interesting. I've never read this before. I'd like to think of it. The title is Like the Robin's Egg. Like the robin's egg, waiting at the edge of being blue and not being, your skin approaches the junction point of being and becoming. Like candy for the fingers, touching you, I can never be sure whether I've touched the truly real, or it's just that my fingertips are dreaming. This is a poem for a lady who used to have two little friends who were 6 and 7. Their names were Perry and Bart. And I made their name into one name, Perry and Bart, because they seem to have kind of the same qualities. It's a little intense, but I think you'll survive. A few puns. You can throw things if you want. Perry and Bart. I've made this imaginary child, Perry and Bart, with you, via transcendental insemination. We have this family in thought. You are one woman I wanted to have children with, and now it's done in the timeless world of immaculate conception. Something to think about. Okay, here's some haiku. These are also in a romantic theme. There's not that many, but I thought I'd mention them. First one's called Geese Haiku. Now haiku, real haiku, bear in mind, are in Japanese, number 1. Number 2, if you're doing them in English, there's a lot of debate over the structure, but the main convention is that there's 17 syllables. They're 5, 7, and 5. They're supposed to have some reference to the seasons. Most of these have 17 syllables, 5, 7, and 5. A few have reference to the seasons. So these are almost haiku. This one is not a reference, maybe just a feeling for a season. Can be a haiku. It doesn't have to be, it's spring. Okay, just something that would happen, and like maybe a reference to plum blossom. Okay, it's spring. So enough academic. I think I should go on to this one. Okay. These are all about different women. I tried to encapsulate different relationships in just those many words. And it's just something I wanted to do, to see if I could do that. First one says, your dark eyeshadow, you love the back of children's heads. Where are you now? Another one. Your name was Paula. We had much in common. You moved away at age 6. And now this burning love makes me better, and you, it just illuminates. Another one. I loved you too much to explain. Grass still may be matted there. The last, the tiny motion of the opening buds of roses. I love you. This is, I call this one frag, F-R-A-G, period. It's also haiku. It's always like this. The night air, steamy, and you, possibility. This last haiku leads into my next section, the Godzilla section. The geese are calling high in the fog of the night, like when you were gone. I really have things. I think that, writing, being creative when you're having a tough time is a kind of positive statement. It's a form of creation. It's a form of synthesis, and it's positive, if I may use the word, affirmation about your life. And if you can put it together in a poem, I think you're getting together towards healing. So I wrote some of these. And these are not all from the same person. This happened a few times. The first one. It was summer '69 and I was in Chicago, and you thought I was neglecting you. Now it's 1982 and you're in Chicago. Here's another one with a light tone. Kind of. I placed my wedding ring on the dryer. It's hard to get it off. Swollen fingers from the dishes. I need a little romance in my life. This one's a little more intense, okay? And probably the most intense one I have, but you survived thus far, I'm sure I'll make it through. The title is Postpartum. Postpartum. When the baby's gone, does the womb feel empty, like its best reason for being is over? Does it ache and hurt as it shrinks back to its normal size and lone potentiality? Does it feel the loss never to return of the child it cannot hold again? Does a woman's womb do all these things in just one way? I hope so. For that would mean that another type of organ in the world knows how my heart feels today, now that you are gone. Okay, moving on. I was in LA and she was here in Iowa. One of your stars fell out of my pocket today. It was wrinkled and bent, like me here at 422, tired and low. I turned the one remaining point towards Iowa, just like my This is for my former wife, several years after we were apart. It says, "Your back appeared in front of me tonight. It doesn't matter that someone else was wearing it. Tonight your back appeared in front of me, and I wanted so much to be back, looking at you, in front of me, and back in love." This also is for her. Gymnasium turned ballroom, piano playing. You'll be talking to an artist, and in a lag, I'll wander up and ask, "May I have this dance?" And unlike those around us improvising, you'll remember, and I'll remember, perfect waltz. I'll always love you. Now this next little opus was written in Switzerland when I was in governor training. And yes, when I was in governor training, I was about to be divorced. It was great. You don't know the insignificant things everyone else had to unstress on. This other guy, all he had was like ringing in his ears. I'm going, "Hey, come on, let's have something real. I'm getting divorced." "Oh, really? Neat. You can unstress on that." "Wow, like I was just ringing." It's like a status, you know. "What are you interested in?" "Well, I'm working on my health." Let's see. So it was really, a status thing. But I did write this poem, and later I actually did this. I went back, and it's just a scene I imagined doing when I was sitting. That was Dream. This perfectly soft and late evening in Iowa City, snow falling in perfect quiet. I'm sitting alone. Now, back on the humor side, an ad that I felt to write at that time. Title is "Available Soon, Used Husband." Goes like this. One owner. Runs well. Plays tennis. Kisses like new. Well trained. Dishwashing. Replacing toothpaste cap. Taking out the trash. Mind in good condition. Heart needs work. Then I thought, okay, why not avoid the whole thing altogether? Just avoid it. So I wrote this on governor training. Now I can prove this on governor training. The only paper we had was the placemats. You can tell this is an original script. And the men in the audience, take this to heart if you ever want to try this. I read this poem when Yevtushenko was here. He said he too had this problem. I think some of it was, what was it? Is that who was here? Yeah. He said he too had this problem, but I do feel a lot of it was self-generating. Anyway. Title is How to Avoid Women. And then the subtitle is Wear Brown. How to avoid women. Wear brown. Wear brown. Do not go to bars, airports, or sewing circles. If you are in school, avoid majoring in elementary ed, library science, or French. Study linguistics. and argue for the systematic phonemic level. This gets you nowhere with women nowadays. Carry an umbrella, unless it's raining. Carrying a purse helps, unless you live in New York, where everyone carries a purse. There are places where you can go where you will rarely meet women. The Greenland ice cap, Marine Corps barracks, near billboards. Become a monk. If you're already a monk, take vows of silence. Do all of the following. Get plenty of rest, eat 3 meals a day, brush after meals and floss at night, bathe daily, collect stamps for butterflies. The combination of the above listed items has the effect of filling up your day completely, and you never run into women. Wear brown. If you're already wearing brown, wear yellow socks. If you play tennis, play at 6:30. For some reason, women don't play at 6:30. Morning meeting. Play singles. Your doubles partner may have friends. Finally, if none of these things work, you may try the following in combination. Collect snakes. Spend a lot of time with your eyes closed. Wear brown. So enough of that negative stuff. Let's go back to romance. Return to romance. Okay? If you're still here. The title of this is First. Hope springs eternal, right? So you keep going. It turns out you're right. First. First you say, I get you agitated, and then you misunderstand my hugs. This is a brave new love. Nameless, secret, assaulted by expectations. It's Christmas Eve. I borrowed some milk and a banana today, and I'll pay you back. It's called Bubbles. Doyne's off to work. Swanson on the phone and eating the oatmeal you made. It's meditation time, and it's great. Having a woman's voice in the house. This poem is so short, but it's got such a great introduction. It's called Approach. Anybody heard of Cosmo Calvino?
Yeah.
All right. Cosmo, or is it Italo Calvino? It's Italo Calvino? It's Italo, excuse me. He wrote something called Cosmic Comics. Okay? And he wrote this great story about this lady, Mrs. Finko, but it's P-H-I-N-K small o, who lived at the original beginning, at the beginning of creation, in a single point, along with all the other principles of creative intelligence. They all had their own special names, but they're all in a single point. And what happened, and there was a word for that, and the word was punctiform, the punctiform universe, in which they were all totally unified, and they all adored Mrs. Finko, and it was like, wow, the thing they adored, they were unified with. It was so happy. Wow, this is great. But Mrs. Finko had the thought, all these guys, what noodles, boys, I'd make for you if I had space and time. So this entire creation had to come out just so Mrs. Finko could make these noodles. I mean, think what you gotta have. You gotta have wheat, you gotta have sun, you gotta have, land, you gotta have water, you gotta have all this stuff. So this is, the story that he wrote, giving these principles of creative intelligence, which he didn't call that, names, these original forces and names, how they felt, getting bigger. Beautiful stuff. All that to explain the last word in this short poem. The title is Approach. This day in the dawn, we're far from hugging. Our hearts are close in admiration, and our home in consciousness, punctiform. Come in, come in. Come in. Okay, here's another one. This is done in LA. Anyone know where Pershing Square is in LA? Pershing Square? All right. Cinderella Liberty. We painted the town in delicate shades of nuance and blue departures. Surrounded Pershing Square and the winos and the bums and the statue of Beethoven with new memories. We ran like two sophomores out to lunch and not caring. I interrupted your professional examination with a kiss. Forgive me, I respect your mind, but there was only time to touch your heart. Now you're back in Minnesota, and are you colder, or is it just the winter coming over the phone? Still, Pershing Square will never be the same. Jewelry and convention district again. Now it's part of the memory of you and me and us in nuance and blue, departures, a Cinderella Liberty that ended at 2 p.m. when I turned to go and you turned to go to a meeting. This poem is definitely for a French speaker. This poem was a fun exercise for me. It was written in English and in French, alternate lines. And it makes sense in English, and it makes sense in French, and also makes sense English, French, English, French, English, French, English, French. Okay? That was fun to try and do. So I think I'll try and translate it first, and then I'll read it. It was called Trois Lumières, or Three Lights. The translation would be, the person's name was Beatrice, which is a pretty appropriate name for poetry. Beatrice, Dante's favorite. Translation would be first line. I'll just do English, French. Beatrice, you are like the sun. The day I first saw you, like the sun so brilliant. You were so bright, so beautiful. It was impossible to look you in the face. So hard to see because so soft. But you've warmed the room, your tender heart so warm. Now you are like the moon. Now you have the sun's light, more soft, more approachable. And moonlight, it's a cooler light. And now we approach you, now drawn to you through space. We rest in your tender light. We find a woman in the moon. We discover your tender visage, your tender face, bright, still bright in the human light. This is the way it goes for real for bilingual speakers. Three lights, trois lumières. Béatrice. Actually, it's supposed to be in English. Beatrice. Beatrice, vous étiez comme le soleil, the day I first saw you. Comme le soleil, si brillante. You were so bright, so beautiful. Il était impossible de vous regarder en face. So hard to see because so soft. Mais vous réchauffiez la salle, your tender heart so warm. Maintenant, tu es comme la lune. Now you have the sun's light. Plus douce, plus approchable. And moonlight, it's a cooler light. Et nous t'approchons, now drawn to you through space. Nous répondons dans ta tendre lumière. We find a woman in the moon. Nous découvrons ton visage délicat, bright, still bright in the human light. It's called It's a Date. I'll meet you anywhere, anytime, any place, on any level, senses, thinking, intellect, heart, ego, or being and being. In the heart, with the body, through the soul, in any way, where I'm the tennis coach, you're the mother, where you're the soldier and I'm the wife, in waking, sleeping, or dreaming, in meditation, in transcendental consciousness, in adoration of the creation, in God consciousness, in unity consciousness, where you turn out to be me to me and I turn out to be you to you. I'll meet you anywhere you are, anywhere you go. I'll meet you by being stronger, by being wealthy, by spending it all on you. I'll meet you in fatherhood and motherhood. I'll meet you by evolving and growing. I'll meet you by opening the vast internal world of my soul to meet you. I'll meet you in the knowledge of where I already met you, be it Egypt or France or Japan or Louisiana or Norway. I'll meet you in the omnipresent and in the particular. I'll meet you for canoeing and talking and for a movie. I'll meet you for breakfast and for dinner and for lunch. I'll meet you at around 4 today at the river. I'll meet you for one heart, one breath, one love. It's a date. Still life. The sunset over the highway, the branches of the leafless grove, simplified to a flat pattern of black lace. all the memories now that I'm 30, held in a single view, and now you, flying and then stopping, branch to branch. Now I see you, now I don't. With a sky pink behind a black lace pattern. A couple more. This is the poem that I decided to finish. It was for Diane, Frank, another poem for Diane. And I wouldn't say it's quite finished, but it's certainly trimmer than it was. And I took some parts out, and when I get it down to a haiku, I'll read it again. This is a little longer. It's called Dancing with a Poet. Dancing with a Poet. What is it that twirls when a poet twirls? When I curl you in to a tight tango-like formation and stop? And what is it that stops? Is it your hair so black, cut like an ancient Egyptian? Is it your eyes so big that never seem to blink? Or is it a world that twirls when a poet spins? Or another galaxy, depending upon the poet, of unusual birds, lost expanses, observations, clarifications, and nuance? Think of what would happen if a poet really turned. Whole planets, new and foreign, or at least entire conceptual spaces, spinning at the basis of everything. And then when I dip you sideways in a dramatic fall, then does all of life become horizontal in some unknown way, while you see just the ceiling overhead? And then what? When I dare to lift you, turning up in the air like a slowly circling eagle, as if all that could be lifted and all that could be turned. Yes, I just can't say what happens then. But one thing that I do know is when I show you one good turn and then another, you turn, you flash, you exhibit grace, life, spunk, and beauty. And yet somehow, when I turn this Egyptian-looking, slender, black-eyed poet, I feel a kind of thrill of standing next to immortality, next to a source and the soul of literature. And I think that maybe if I put a little extra beauty and a twist of imagination into our dance, that you of all people will understand it, that you of all people will perceive it fully, and that our dance, perhaps, will come out someday in one of your poems as a heron's wing, a brief, enigmatic point, or a message straight from the feeling level to all of creation. I guess it's just because, to me, the poet stands intently waiting on the surface of the deep totality where it crinkles into shape and sound and object, and by writing there and living there becomes a compact form of God. She does what God does in some tiny way, and so shares the job, shares the life, and shares the level where nothing spins unless he spun it. It makes me pause, at least, among the notes and the steps of the dance, just as your eyes, never blinking, make me think that, though we're dancing, someone, something here is unmoved, unmoving, unturned, unspun, not twirling and not turning sideways in a languid, lovely fall. Yet I, the master planner of your move, your turn, your twirl, your lift, have been the one above the dance, uplifted. One more poem. It was great. It's called You're the Most. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, which is saying a lot. because I've seen a single rose in a silver vase, the sun illuminating the underside of 50 clouds, 2 sparrows seeking their dinner on the steps outside a lecture hall, and a flower petal, purple, against a white sink.